Our political lexicon, that is the language that we use to talk about law and justice, is suffused, it's filled throughout with the language of rights. We use rights, we use this language without even thinking about it. And so it's especially important to step back and try and define what we mean when we invoke the language of rights. What are rights? We've defined property, and property is a bundle of rights. So it's important that we in turn define rights and then try to ask what justifies certain kinds of rights, and then, in the broadest sense throughout the rest of this course, ask what is the moral weight of rights? What kind of justice claim can be founded on rights? And so we can begin simply by saying, what is a right? Well, in English, it's important to distinguish between the word right and a right. Right as an adjective means an order in which things are, in some sense, correct, normative, or morally appropriate. It's right that someone does something. That's slightly different, although there's obviously a connection between the meanings. Here we're talking about the use of right as a noun. It's my right to do X. You have a right to this or that. And so here we're talking about right as a noun, and in particular belonging to an individual subject who has this right. And one of the great legal analysts of the early 20th century, named Hofeld, who was a professor of law, finished his career at Yale, gave a vastly influential exploration of what we mean when we use the language of rights. And he says, in fact, that we use right to mean 4 different kinds of things. We use it to mean privilege, we use it to mean a claim, we use it to mean a power, and we use it to mean an immunity. And it's been a very powerful exploration of what rights are. So let's explore what these 4 things that rights can mean in this system of analysis. A right can be a privilege, and that's very similar to the right to use something. I have a right to type on my computer. I have a right to drive my car. In that sense, that's my privilege, and a property right is deeply connected to this kind of privilege of ownership. I can also say that I have a right in the sense that I have a claim. And so I have a right to receive medical attention when I pay for it. You have a right as a student for me to teach you and to be here and teaching this class. In fact, that's quite complicated because there's a third party. You actually pay the university and the university pays me. And so there's a series of transactions involved, but it's nevertheless a claim. It's a claim, in fact, that's created by a contract. And in this sense, it's actually somewhat easy to explain where this kind of right comes from. Now, those are, in a sense, first order rights. There are a higher order of rights that are considered powers and immunities. And so a power is a right that means I have the ability to command. I have the ability to change a situation. And so a mother has the right to order her child to eat broccoli. She has that power. And that can come from different places. In our society, that's a parent-child relationship. There can be other kinds of relationship. A military commander has the right to command a soldier to march into battle. And so these kinds of rights can have complex origins. They can even be constitutional powers. So a president has the right to command the army in times of war because he's the executive in chief. The 4th kind of way that we use the language of rights is as an immunity. And think of this like the rights that are protected. No matter what, I have the right to free speech, an American might say. That means that I have an immunity. I have some claim, some protection on my ability to do something that you cannot infringe, even if you have powers. And so these 2, as second-order kinds of rights, can be considered constitutional in a sense. The right to religious expression, the right to freedom of speech, the rights of the press, the right to bear arms. Those are immunities that are protected by the Bill of Rights. That is, that they're limits on state power. So these are the ways in which we use the language of rights. But as we move throughout the rest of this class, we want to ask what justifies certain kinds of rights and what is the limit of rights? How much moral weight do they carry? As we'll see, the language of rights, the concept of rights, tends to carry tremendous weight in our way of thinking about justice.